Hello and welcome to the Dwell on Truth podcast. I'm your host, Brenton Powers, and for today's episode, we are going to be playing my conversation with Dave Michaels, the host of KSCO radio show Flight 1080. This aired on May 25th. So I'm sorry for the delay for those of you who have been waiting for me to share this with you. And I've edited out the commercials, the traffic, the weather, the news, and made it a little bit shorter for you guys. So I hope you enjoy. On this episode, I'm asked questions about the age of the earth, about the rapture, about all kinds of things. And we get questions from hostile non-Christians to testimonies from a couple of Christians to Bible questions and answers. So I hope you enjoy. And this is my first time being on the air, so you might hear a little bit of nervousness in my voice, but by God's grace, I hope that He spoke to many people on the radio. There were probably 10 to 20,000 people listening. And who knows how many people will listen to this podcast. So I hope you're blessed and encouraged. I thought about answering these questions more in depth, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to let you listen to how I answered on the air. And if there's any questions that you have or you would like me to expound upon or ask why did I answer it this way, you can write to questions@dwellontruth.org. That email again is questions@dwellontruth.org. And if you'd listen to this podcast, I would love to hear from you. So you can also write to questions@dwellontruth.org with your comments and feedback. If you felt I could have done something or said something better, I'm open to criticism. And I am going to be on the air again for a third time. The second time happened in June, which I'll be airing that episode soon. But the next time I'm going to be on the air will be August 31st, 2018. So tune in to KSCO 1080 AM in the Monterey County, Santa Cruz County, San Jose area to hear that live. Otherwise, I'll just be sharing it on this podcast, which you can subscribe to at podomatic.com/dwellontruth. My Patreon page, if you're getting a lot out of these shows and want to hear more, is patreon.com/dwellontruth. And of course, the main website is dwellontruth.org. You can also reach it by typing in dwellontruth.com. Anyway, enough introductions. Please enjoy today's episode.
Four 479-1080. Let's get to some more phone calls, Brenton. And again, you're willing to take calls from anybody, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just type in the next thing. Tell me again about your sister's group. Who are they?
Monster on Sunday.
Okay.
And they also have a vlog on YouTube called Godless Rockers.
Mm-hmm. And again, the lyrics are cool, right? This is something that she writes into her songs is why she doesn't believe in God.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn cool, man. I like that. Let's head out to the phone lines and see who's up next. This is Vanessa calling from Salinas. You're in the air. Vanessa, are you there? Oh, wait, did I pick you up? Yeah, you're in the air, Vanessa.
Hi, I'm here. I'm sorry about that.
Okay,
I had
no
to
problem.
put you guys on mute. Sorry, I am multitasking here, but I just wanted to share a couple miracles that I know that were God. I'm not a big religion person. I've known of God for 3 years. I was on opium for about 15 years of my life, full-blown alcoholic, was hooked on prescription pills, tried to quit myself, didn't work, right? Pleaded to God one day on my knees, said, show me that you're real, take this away, take these addictions away, take all of this away. I'm not kidding you. The Holy Spirit fell over my whole body, and I quit that night. I threw all my drugs away, and thank you. And I've been sober for 18 months now. And like I said, I've tried to quit on my own before, and it didn't work. That's one huge miracle that God's done in my life. Also, the miracle of joy. Through my pain and my sorrow, God has given me joy in my life. And that's not flesh. That's not a human thing that we could have. Joy is different than happiness, you know?
That's awesome.
And another thing I wanted to share is I had to go to the hospital, and the doctors found what was cancerous cells growing in my uterus. And I prayed and prayed, and I had faith that the Lord was going to heal me. And when I went back to my second appointment, they couldn't find them anywhere. So that's the power of healing. That's a miracle that just does not go away on its own. Another miracle that I've been faithfully praying for is my marriage. God, I've been faithfully praying for over 2 years for my marriage, and I'm going through a divorce. And just last week on Wednesday was my final court hearing for the judge to grant the divorce. And I prayed and I prayed. I love my husband. I stand firm on the word of God and on his promises for my marriage. And that day, by the grace of God, the judge did not grant my divorce. And that moment that we walked out of the courtroom, my husband asked to speak with me, and I haven't spoken with him for over 2 years, and we're on the works of mending our marriage. So I just want to tell people who do not believe that God is very, very, very real. If I was at the brink of my children being taken away from me, my family was going to admit me into a rehab. I was lost, you know, in this world. God saved me, and he can do it to anybody.
Amen. He saved me.
Thank you for the phone call, Vanessa. 479-1080.
It's hard to argue with that, isn't it?
I could argue with it.
She gives 4 examples of things that happened to her. She knows by experience. It's hard to argue with someone's subjective experience that that didn't happen to you. You could say it doesn't prove anything to me, but it proves something to her.
To her, yes. So I'm not looking for miracles that are subjective to me, right? Like if I go in and they think, I don't ever want this to happen, so I hate coming up with scenarios like this. Let's say I go in and they find some kind of cancer, and I go back and they say, hey, it's gone. I don't go, holy mackerel, jump to my knees, thank God. I go, well, you probably got it wrong in the first place, right? Or something happened and maybe you just don't see it this time, double check. Yeah. But I wouldn't say it's a miracle. Now, if I saw Moses part the ocean, I would think that's a miracle. That there's no doubt about that. That is a miracle. And short of seeing something like that, I don't buy that any of that stuff's a miracle. It's great. It's all beautiful that it happened to her, and I'm so happy for you, but I don't know that it's miracles.
So you believe in objective miracles, but not subjective miracles?
I guess, yes.
Meaning,
I don't know if that's what I said, but yes. I don't know.
You said
yes.
It's something everyone can see, not just one person seeing it. So, yeah, I think both are valid. If God does something to an individual to reveal himself to them, whether it's through suffering or through healing, he can use both. And he could also use other people's miracles. I mean, me hearing these things, it increases my faith when I hear stories like that. However, I'm with you. I am skeptical about these subjective things because there's no way we can verify it unless the doctor himself verifies it. You know, there's
even if he did,
it
could be a misdiagnosis, right? Because doctors can have the best intention and just miss something.
Or, but there's certain things that can't be explained. That it was there, it was found on tests, and then it's gone. That would be an unexplained event.
I would say a miracle would be more like
a miracle.
Some kids connected at the hip, right? Like Siamese twins, and they wake up and they're not connected. I mean, now that's a miracle. You can't argue with that.
Yeah. The kind of miracles that the Bible talks about are the objective kinds that everybody in the nation of Israel were able to see if they were there. For example, the crossing of the Red Sea and the water parting.
You know, some people say he just timed the tide right, and an island was out there, and he knew that the tides, and
some scholars try and explain away all the miracles because they come to the Bible with a presupposition that miracles cannot happen. So if you view the world through a miraculous
Is it not
lens,
fun?
you're going to say, let me find a way to explain that away in a physical way. Like, it wasn't the Red Sea they crossed. It was the Sea of Reeds, which is only about ankle deep. But
people say that? How did it kill the Roman soldiers?
That would be my
right.
question.
No, that's ridiculous.
And all the chariots and everything.
Right.
They
Yeah. No.
drowned.
It is clear. It was very clear that it swamped them and they drowned.
Absolutely.
So
And
it would have had to
quick.
be at least shoulder chest high at least.
Yeah. So it's those stories of God delivering people, rescuing people from extreme danger that would convince you to become a Christian. A lot of these stories are actually pointing forward to the greatest miracle, the greatest rescue story ever told, and it's the story of what Jesus did for all of humanity, black, white, yellow, red.
Even Canadians?
Even Canadians.
All right. 479-1080, DM at KSCO.com. Let's see who's up next. It is Rory. You're in the air.
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call, and
Sure.
Vanessa, that was a great story.
That was a good story.
And I think the bigger miracle in her life is that she couldn't help herself with the drug abuse, and she was going down the toilet, and God reached in and saved her. And that's exactly what God did to me when I was 17, and that's the biggest miracle witness in my life. So anyway, Dave, kudos to you for taking on these topics. It's not easy in an age of skepticism, which is okay. These ages come and go. But your guest is it Brennan?
Brenton. Brenten.
Brenton?
Yes.
Okay, Brenton. Good to hear you. I heard you call a couple weeks ago, or whatever it was, 3 weeks ago, and I'm glad Dave has you on. Could you just go over the quick prophecy of what happened to Tyre and Sidon? Because that's a verifiable prophecy that was made, I don't know, a couple hundred years.
Is that the one that Joshua was talking about? That Alexander the Great went in there and
yes,
and
yeah, I believe so.
You know, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not an archaeologist. I just know that they did dig up the several layers of Tyre and Sidon.
You know what I heard about that, Rory, is I heard that Alexander the Great was a well-educated man. He knew about these prophecies, so when he went to attack and overtake Tyre, he decided to make it seem as if though he was the prophecy that the Bible was speaking about, because he knew that this was a prophecy in the Bible. He went there and did it in a way that made it seem as if though he was the one spoken of in the Bible. He knew about it.
I don't know. I don't know. I've never heard that, Dave, but I do know that it was prophesied hundreds of years before it happened. It happened, and it was complete. So the other thing is, and there's lots of evidence of those now that the archaeologists are out there digging around. But the other thing, when you were talking earlier about life, you can have all the amino acids and everything ready. You can hit it with electricity, but it's not going to be alive. Okay,
Right.
Nobody's created life in the lab, and that's under extremely controlled conditions with optimal circumstances. So
right, and you have all the elements to start with, but in the beginning, when you don't have all the elements and no one to guide it, not a perfect lab situation.
And it's the old
very
analogy
unlikely.
was, an explosion in a junkyard, you get a 747.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. And the other thing too is to remember this: God is spirit. If the physical world that we see emanates from God's spirit, it's not the other way around. What we see now is passing. It's not going to last forever. The spiritual world is actually where reality is. So anyway, I just throw
the physical world is real, though, right? You don't just believe it. You're not a agnostic that believes only the spiritual is real. And
no.
Okay.
I believe
But
it. I mean, if I hit you in the head with a hammer, you're going to feel some pain for sure.
That's real.
But the physical world emanates from the spirit. That's how it works.
Is that really how it works? I mean, thank you for your call too, Rory. 479. Because isn't it the spiritual world that thrives on humans? We don't need spirituality to exist, but spirituality needs us to exist.
Well, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
In this case,
God
it doesn't
or
matter because
creation?
in this case it wouldn't matter because humans are absolutely not dependent on spirituality. Absolutely not.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. But spirituality is absolutely dependent on humans because animals can't have spirituality. Only humans can.
I don't think we would be able to have this conversation if there weren't a God.
Yeah, that's what you think, but I don't. And that's what makes this great, dude. That's what I love about this stuff. It's so fun to do. 479-1080, 218-5726. We are going to break so that you can get updated on local headlines. Keep it tuned in, KSCO Santa Cruz.
My sweet Lord, my Lord, my Lord.
6:32 is the time. Headlines are up next. Here's Phil.
Thanks, Dave, and good evening, Central Coast. There's a new Farm Workers Center in Old Town Salinas. The Central Coast Farm Workers Center will serve the largest concentration of unionized farm workers in the country. The more than 10,000 square foot center can facilitate up to 400 people at one time. And the third phase of the Heckler Pass Pacific Plan is expected to be considered by the Gilroy Planning Commission during their June meeting. The North Heckler Pass residential cluster calls for 72 single-family housing units to be constructed east of the Gilroy Municipal Golf Course. And warning signs have been put back up at Lovers Point Beach in Pacific Grove. That's because tests have once again showed high levels of bacteria in ocean water there. For more information on Monterey Peninsula beaches, people can call the hotline at 800-347-6363. That's 800-347-6363. It's 6:32. Time to get back to Flight 1080. I'm Phil Deseth for KSCO Radio.
For decades in California, a politician's been our top education official.
No surprise, our schools rank near the bottom.
But now, one candidate for state superintendent will change that. Only Marshall Tuck turned around struggling schools.
Only Tuck cut bureaucracy, invested in classrooms, got parents more involved, and raised graduation rates by over 60%.
Only Tuck will make the big changes our schools need.
Paid for by Marshall Tuck for State Superintendent of Public Instruction 2018.
Hello, folks. Charlie Friedman here at Ella's at the airport. Ella, how do you get people to travel to the Watsonville airport just to enjoy the food?
Service, we really feel like, is paramount for any good restaurant. You know, you can have great food, but if you don't have great service to go with it, then sometimes the bill is not fulfilled. And we feel that service is just as important, and so we really pride ourselves in being attentive, taking care of our customers as if we would be our parents. And of course, our ambiance is exceptional. I think, personally, I am a little biased, but I think our ambiance is gorgeous. We have those rolling hills that are so green right now, airplanes cresting over the hill and landing right in front of our restaurant. Of course, we have transformed that restaurant, which has been there for well over 30 years, I think, into a wonderfully comfortable dining experience. It's really a comfortable elegance is what we like to call it.
Ella's at the Watsonville Airport.
Does your PC take decades to boot up? Has your computer become noticeably slower to respond throughout the years? Are you frightened of your own personal computing device? Well, have no fear, user-friendly computing is here. Stop by the shop and see Peter and his friendly staff. They can do it all: virus and spyware removal, general troubleshooting and repair, system upgrades, optimization of performance, and much more, all with the promise of a free $50 diagnostic coupon, just for saying you heard their ad on KSCO. Give them a call at 831-423-9653 or visit them directly at 505 River Street in Santa Cruz. User-friendly computing, expert computer service for an excellent price. And you can visit them online at friendlycomputing.com.
Not good. More of our fellow citizens were killed in 1 year of the opioid epidemic than were killed during the entire 19 years of the Vietnam War. Join me, Michael Olson, Saturday at 9 a.m. as the Food Chain hosts Santa Cruz doctors Nicholas Abidi and William Morris for a conversation about how to manage our pain without killing ourselves with opioid medications. The doctors are in for 1 hour of managing pain. Saturday, 9 a.m. right here on the Food Chain Radio Show.
What day was that?
Thanks for listening to AM 1080 KSCO.
Just
479-1080. You're listening to Flight 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz. And even though I don't believe in him, well, even though I don't believe in God, Jesus is just all right with me. I can believe in Jesus is God, right? Is that right?
That's
Brenton?
what he claimed. That's what his works show.
Just all right. Well, Jesus is all right with me, even though I don't believe. I'm willing to leave the door open. That's why you're here.
You like C.S. Lewis, right? You mentioned him earlier.
I think he is brilliant. I think he's beyond brilliant.
There's a brilliant thing that C.S. Lewis said about those who say Jesus is just a good teacher, or Jesus is just a prophet, but he's not the Son of God, or Jesus was, something less than God.
Mm-hmm.
He says, you got to Google. I'm going to have to Google it and read it on the air because it is awesome.
Give me the shivers? Is it going to give me the chills?
Yeah.
Really?
If you like C.S. Lewis,
I do like
you'll love
C.S.
this
Lewis,
quote.
yes. I think C.S. Lewis, like I said, is beyond genius because it's like inquisitive genius. I've never read anything like his book, and I don't remember what the title was. But
he wrote Chronicles of Narnia. Was it one of those?
No. That's like a fantasy book, right? This was all he was just addressing religiosity and just answering questions. Just doing what we're doing now, what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
The book was written for people like me.
He was on the BBC. He was a radio host on the BBC, and he went through a series. That's where this book, Mere Christianity, originated from, his radio show, talking about what is Christianity at its core.
Let's get to a phone call while you look for that quote there.
I found it.
You found it? Okay, what is it?
Okay. He says, I'm trying here to prevent anyone from saying the really foolish thing that people often say about him. I'm ready to accept Jesus as a great moral teacher, but I don't accept his claim to be God. That is the one thing we must not say. A man who was merely a man and said the sort of things that Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would be either a lunatic on the level with a man who says he's a poached egg, or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman or something worse.
Mm-hmm.
You can shut him up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come with any patronizing nonsense about his being a great human teacher. He has not left that open to us. He did not intend to.
479-1080. So C.S. Lewis, he is a Christian, right? He is a firm believer in God.
He was. Yeah. He still is. He's in heaven now.
No,
he passed away. But that's the great. He's either Lord, liar, or a lunatic. Which one is it?
I don't want to pass judgment on Jesus because he's not here. So, and plus, if I talk, he could strike me with a bolt of lightning. But today, if I was to see somebody who called himself Jesus, even if it really was Jesus, I would think he was a nut.
Right.
Even if it was Jesus himself.
What if his name was Jesus?
I think he's a nut, a Mexican nut, right? Somebody from Mexico that they call Jesus, I think he's a nut from Mexico. But no, I just, I wonder if Jesus did come back. That song I played earlier, Ever Thought of Coming Back, by Kelly Stoltz. And he says his point is, Jesus, if you do exist, if you ever thought about coming back, now is the time, right? And if Jesus was to come back, I wouldn't accept him. I would think you're a nut, dude. You are a nut. Unless you show me some miracle, which would he do that or not?
Well, the way he's going to come back is going to be obvious that he is who he is, because he's going to split the sky open, come down from heaven on a white horse with a sword coming out of his mouth and blood on his his robe as the reigning King of Kings and Lord of Lords.
Still have to work on that day. I'll still have to work on that day, I bet.
Well,
because I never get a day off.
You shouldn't wait till that day, because if you wait till then, it'll be too late. Now is your chance. The Bible says today is the day of salvation. And based on what you say about Jesus, if you call on him as Lord, you'll be saved.
479-1080. Let's see who's up next. Michael calling from Santa Cruz. You're in the air.
Hey, guys. Hey, thanks for having the show tonight and for being willing to, to open up the discussion on the topic for the realm.
Sure.
I'm thinking about when the teacher of Israel came to Jesus. The teacher's name is Nicodemus, and he was a teacher of Israel, and he was confused because of Jesus' presence. There was conflict in the eldership circle of Israel, and Nicodemus came to Jesus secretly at night and asked him to talk with him and give him some understanding. And Jesus talked with Nicodemus about a man must be born of the Spirit to enter the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven.
That's right.
The eternal. And Nicodemus had a little bit of a problem with that in his confusion, because he said, I'm this old. Can I enter into my mother's womb a second time? And if you, the guest, would be willing to share, because I perceive that you're sharing out a motive of love, not one upmanship, but of what Jesus meant when he was talking about being born of the Spirit, being born again, and that, this. He also said, be receptive like a child wants to trust. Be receptive to God showing you. That
he
he'll
said,
meet
no
you
one
in
can enter the kingdom of heaven unless you become like a child. And I don't think he was meaning to be childish, but have the level of trust toward God that a child has towards their loving parents. There's no reason to doubt our Heavenly Father since he's been kind to us. Yeah, so I'd be happy to explain that. Being born again. Now, would you say you're a born again Christian?
Well, I think God showed me my need quite a number of years back ago. I actually prayed as one that was 26 years old, and the world didn't really seem like it had much significance to stick around for in all the different relationships that I'd had with family and so forth. So I came to a point of I fasted for a number of days. I asked this God, if you really exist, if there really is a God, then show me the truth that all lesser truths will have to answer to in the end. And he gave me a revelation of the mercy of God, the love of God, and in fact, at that point that revelation was given, I wasn't actually really quite ready to receive it, even though the revelation was given to me. I initially resisted because I thought I was unworthy, and there was something that I needed to do to stay the hand of a merciful God coming to me, and I realized that every attempt to try to do it on my own was ultimately a failure. So it comes back around again to receiving as a child. Otherwise, what happens is this pride that's built into us from trying to struggle to survive in this world and walking by sight and by our own whatever it is appetites doesn't. We're too armored in our own souls to be childlike, to actually say, hey, look, I don't really know all the answers, but I'm open to you, the Spirit of God, or God, if you're real, showing me that. Because
and that's what it comes down to. I mean, Jesus comes as what the quote I read earlier about him not being just a good teacher is true, but he is the best teacher, I think, in all of human history. That's why he's changed so many lives. And looking at this chapter in John chapter 3 where he talked to Nicodemus, he went on to explain what that meant to be born of the Spirit in a way that I think made sense to Nicodemus. And that's why we saw Nicodemus after Jesus had died on the cross. He was one of the two people that took Jesus down, wrapped him in spices, and gave him an honorable burial. So I think Nicodemus became a believer through this experience. And that love that you were talking about, in the same chapter, Jesus explains that being born of the Spirit means just as you were born from your mother physically, you can be born of the Spirit, of the Holy Spirit. He regenerates your insides so you become alive to God. That thing that Adam lost for all of us when he sinned and brought death into the world, it was spiritual death. And Jesus brings spiritual life. And so that the most famous verse I'd love to read on the air comes from this conversation Jesus had with them, John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him.
Thank you for your call, Michael. 479-1080. Let's see who's up next. It is Mickey. You're in the air.
Hi, guys. Hello.
Hi.
I have two questions for you. When did man start eating meat?
And the second question?
Okay, the second question is, what's the difference between luck and miracles?
There you go. When did man start eating meat, and what's the difference between luck and miracles? Thank you for the call, Mickey.
Yeah. Well, he would have had to have eaten meat sometime after the fall, because there was no death before they ate of the tree of the garden that they weren't supposed to eat from. And then when Noah came off of the ark, God said, you can kill every four-footed animal and eat it as meat. God allowed them to eat meat then.
Right.
And as far as certain meats were not allowed to be eaten by the Jews, that was when the time of Moses came. He said, don't eat anything with the hoof, or, so they didn't eat pork, which is a good thing because they didn't know about trichinosis back then. But now that we know about that, and even in Jesus' time, Jesus said, it's not what goes in your mouth that defiles you, but it's what comes out of your mouth. It's showing the evil and the murder and the adultery, the things that you say, shows that there's evil coming out of your heart. So by this, the gospel writer comments that he declared all foods clean. And again, in Acts chapter 13, a little bit later, when the apostles went out to reach the non-Jews, God showed Peter a vision of all of these hoofed animals that they were allowed to eat. And he said, kill and eat. Peter said, I'm not so, Lord. I'm a Jew. I'd never eaten any unclean animal. And God said, don't call unclean what I've cleansed. And he did this 3 times for him as a sign of saying, you can go to the Gentiles. You don't have to be stuck in the Jewish nation. Go out and spread the news to people that the Jews would call unclean.
479-1080. Miracles, and what was the other one?
Second question, the difference between luck and miracles.
Okay.
Luck has to do more with chance, or if you think there's some. I don't really get luck. People say good luck. It's wishing well on somebody, but I don't think there's any force behind luck making it happen, or that certain people are unlucky, other people are lucky. I think miracles is different than luck.
Yeah, clearly different things. 479-1080. Let's see who's up next. It is Daniel. You're in the air. Daniel, are you there? Turn your radio off, Daniel. You know what happens, Brenton, is sometimes...
8-second delay.
There's an 8-second delay, so he's probably listening on delay. He's 8 seconds behind. So make sure you turn your radio off, Daniel.
And listen into the phone.
And listen into the phone. We're speaking with Brenton Powers, and we hope to have you on again sometimes. I want to get this kind of roundtable discussion going, where we're going to have Timothy.
That'd be fun.
And I got to find somebody else. Oh, and you can bring a guest, right? And we'll have 2 on this side of the table, 2 on that side of the table. And it'll just be it'll be fun, man. This is going to be great. We have to see if we can get that done. Daniel, are you ready to go?
Yes,
okay.
I'm here.
You're in the air.
Okay. Your guest, he's really, really good.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Like having him on.
Thanks.
But I want to pretty much just say one thing, and then I'm going to let you go, David.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah.
Go for it.
I'm ready.
Okay. You say you don't believe in God, right?
Correct.
Okay. That means you believe in the God of no God.
What do you mean by that?
I think I know what he means. Thank you for your call, too, Daniel. 479-1080. I would say I'm not sure exactly this is what he meant. I take it to mean that somebody like your sister... and you and your sister both come from the same family. She has gone on this side of the fence. You've gone on this side of the fence. After both of you guys have weighed, the evidence, right? She's come to this conclusion. You've come to that conclusion. Somebody who is insistent that there is no God, and somebody who goes around preaching and telling people there is no God. Why are you such an idiot, you big dummy? There can't be a God. Those kind of people, for lack of a better term, are religious. Their religion is the religion of no God. I don't do that. I don't go around preaching that there is no God. I don't do that at all. All I say is I don't think there is. I'm not convinced that there is. You do? Well, tell me about it. You don't? Tell me about it. I don't go around pushing my point of view on anybody. That's not what I do. So I don't treat it as a religion. I truly just don't believe. 479-1080. Thank you for your call, Daniel. Nancy and Carmel, you're in the air.
Hi, thank you so much.
Sure.
So I view the Bible as a metaphysics guide, not religion. And there is no mention of religion in the Bible anywhere.
There is in the book of James. This is pure and undefiled religion, that you should visit widows and orphans in their distress. What do you say to that?
That has nothing to do with faith. That's not the same thing he's talking about. But I don't want to take your time right now about that.
Okay,
But
so metaphysics.
If you want to call me on that one, that's fine. But metaphysics meaning a guide to living, meaning the laws of the universe that are set out by God. But it's more about once he did it, that was it. He created everything, and when he said, let there be light, it means allow everything that he created, allow it to come into the consciousness of humanity. So that, in other words, the fact that somebody hasn't discovered, how to make an A-bomb or whatever in the year 1000, well, it was already developed. It's just that it hadn't been allowed to be discovered yet. That is my view. Okay. Also, born again just means renewing your thoughts. It doesn't mean anything about having to be, you don't have to change anything about yourself except for how you think. And then salvation to me just means that it allows your soul to return to this plane and learn more. And heaven is a state of mind. It is not a place.
These are all good points. Boy, we could do a whole show on everything she just said. Thank you for your call, 479. So tell me this. Being reborn does not mean that you have to come back out of the birth canal, right?
Right, exactly. Jesus wasn't talking about doing that.
Because that would be very awkward,
right,
for both people involved.
That's impossible. That's what Nicodemus was pointing out. 218-5726.
If God can do anything, can't he also allow an earth or universe with infinite possibilities, enabling life to spontaneously form or self-assemble? Okay. Yeah, that's what you say, right?
Yeah, he could do that, and
but you think
I think it happened the way he said it happened.
Okay. He could do it this
I've looked at all of these different theories, the multiverse theory, the bubble
it's fun,
wrap
right?
theory.
This is fun
you
stuff.
You can go down the rabbit hole, but none of that can be tested. I mean,
right. It's all theoretical.
It's all theoretical, but I'm a realist.
218-5726. Hey, Dave, the master told us, believe it and it shall be so, and your faith can be small as a mustard seed, but it must be complete. So believe this old grouch, it is this way. Okay. All right, if you say so. All right, Bill in Boulder Creek. He is our final phone call, and then you and I will shoot it out for the last 5 minutes. Bill, thank you for your call. You're in the air.
Yeah, hi. I read an interesting book once. It was called, subtitled The Second Coming of Christ, and it was like some Edgar Casey type channeling people, and one of the guys they channeled was this guy Christ, and he said he was more like a Martin Luther King kind of guy, and he was murdered in the same fashion that Martin Luther King was murdered. And as the years went by, people deified him as they've done other people in the past who are considered gods. And he basically said that the idea of healing powers was more in the form of chiropractic and Reiki. Anyway, I kind of would tend to believe that. I don't think any human being could be God. I have trouble with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree with you, right? I mean, Jesus was not human, was he? I mean, he was supernatural. Or was he? Thank you for your call, Bill. Thank you.
I agree. People cannot become gods, but I believe that God can become a human, and he did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jesus didn't stop being God, but what Christians have believed for the last 2,000 years is that God was incarnate. He went into the flesh, so he added a second nature. He's 100% God, and he became 100% man. I don't deny the humanity or the deity.
Well, he had to be 100. There had to be 101% there, right? If he's going to be 100% human and 100% God, he has to be. I guess in this case he could be both, right? Because he's in human form.
Yeah.
So Jesus was human, but he was more
human.
than that.
He suffered like we suffer. Actually, he suffered more than anyone.
Did he pull off any miracles himself?
Yeah.
The humans. So then he was more than human. Because I can't go and pull off a miracle.
Well, it's interesting the theologians talk about...
Or can I, if God grants me the power, could I
miracles can happen. The way that Jesus came and lived on the earth, he lived as God in the flesh, but he also lived as the perfect man, the perfect one who he kept all of the 10 commandments, he kept all the commands of God, he perfectly obeyed God, and he only did the miracles that the Father enabled him to do. In other words, Jesus, the Father, and the Spirit all work together to produce those miracles. And and he gave that power of doing miracles to his apostles. And there's some people today that have the power to do miracles or prophesy. I've seen some pretty supernatural things happen. I've predicted some things that came to pass. And
what's
awesome.
the most evidence of God? I don't want to say miracle, but give me something that you've seen.
Well, when my first time in Ukraine, my wife got sick, and as people were laid their hands on her and prayed for her, and
you weren't worried about germs, all those people?
No, they were healthy people praying for her. She was the one that was sick. They were taking the risk.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't very pleasant. But she even prayed out loud, Lord, if you want us to move here as missionaries, maybe would you confirm that by healing me right now? And right then her stomach went, and she's like, I feel totally better. Same thing happened to me a couple years later when I visited Latvia, and I was sick as a dog, but I was supposed to speak at a church in Russian, and I thought, I'm not going to be able to do it, but I'm going to go, and hopefully God heals me. Just the moment I stood up to preach, I was perfectly fine.
You can speak Russian?
Да, я могу говорить по-русски.
Can you say, vote for Donald Trump? Can you say that?
I know how to say it.
Do you believe, I believe politics?
Trumpa.
That's great, dude. Okay, so we got about a minute here. Anything else that we need to get off? I can't hit you with my secret question. I can't even tell it to you because then it won't be secret.
Save it for next time. I'd love to be on your show.
This is going to be great, dude. We're going to have lots of fun next time. We'll have even more fun next time because I'll have some really hard-hitting stuff for you. You see, as I learn more from the Bible, right? I'm about to start on Leviticus. As I learn more...
You should start in the New Testament.
I only know how to read books in one way, Brenton, and that's from the front to the back.
The Bible is actually 66 books. You don't have to start in the third book or the first
60s. I thought it was just one.
No, it's a collection of books.
Oh man.
Read the New Testament.
I'll never finish it.
When you get bored, how about this? When you get bored of Leviticus because there are things in there that are not relevant to our lives today, start with Matthew or John.
Okay. All right, I'll take that into account.
So that was my first time on the radio. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to hear more, please subscribe to the podcast and write to me with your questions or comments at questions@dwellontruth.org. And remember, if you dwell on truth, you can be courageous.